Today we have an amazing Spiegel dresser in a style that was popular more than 100 years ago. The objective here is to restore and upgrade this dresser without compromising the original design. Welcome to Montford Boulevard. Join us for another step-by-step DIY Art Deco furniture restoration. As always, this furniture piece will be available for purchase in our store. You can find the link in the description. This unique dresser is from the very beginning of the Art Deco furniture movement, before the waterfall style came into play. You can find a similar style of furniture as far back as 1913 in Spiegel catalogs. It features a lacquer veneer painted wood effect. Again, this is prior to the waterfall era, but these original handles are quintessential Art Deco. We actually did a similar style Spiegel dresser before that did have a waterfall, but that one was unique in that the original tag was still on the back, and we could see that it had shipped in 1929. This was right before the Great Depression forced the Spiegel Furniture Company to close up shop, starting in 1930. So, taking a closer look at this dresser, I noticed that one of the boards that comprised the top was loose. It was warped and lifted up. I could almost pull it down with my fingers, but not quite. And looking closer, noticing a few other things like this split inside of the frame that needs to be repaired. First off, we're going to drill down right through the top. I'm then going to use a recess bit so that we can hide the screw easier. Now we're going to let gravity do its work as we add some wood glue. I'm going to check inside up underneath the top just to make sure no glue is leaking through. Looking good. Here's a nice little trick. If your clamp isn't long enough, you can actually use two of them to get the job done. That got this gap pretty close, but I could still feel a little bit of a step in it. I was kind of surprised. However, this screw did the trick, and that was pretty much perfectly flush. There's still a space in between, but that's about as level as you're going to get. That worked out well. It also squeezed a little bit of glue out from the underside, so I'll clean that off. Now we're going to address that break in the frame. You can see a nail sticking through. It's not that bigger tack, but the smaller nail off to the side. Also finding some other things like this split in the frame, and the bottom is kind of chewed up. I'm using 2-part epoxy here because that'll dry faster. Now we've got some body filler, adding that to the screw hole in the top. And also that gap. Okay, while that dries, we're going to wash these drawers. Again, this is fortunately another dresser that really was not that bad. Didn't even really have any odors, but still, we're just going to give it a real thorough cleaning. Now some body filler in that crack, and some of the other places. Looking it over, I kept finding additional places that could use some filler. After getting them all, it's time for a thorough sanding. I am in the market for a new orbital, so if anybody has any recommendations, please let me know. I've already gotten a couple good suggestions from people. We don't have to be as careful with this top since this isn't veneer, this is solid wood. Actually kind of a thick coating of stain that we're going to have to remove here. They were making an effort to try and beautify what was cheaper wood, to be honest. Also going to get the frame while we're here. And here's a look at the top. You can see that they used a combination of woods, pretty much whatever was available. But the greens that you see in there, that's poplar. Poplar is a cheap but sturdy wood. They were really using whatever they could to get these dressers built. Next, we're going to hand sand all of the trim and the places that the orbital couldn't get. I also found a spot on the shoe that was pretty chewed up at the corner. And several other little nicks and dings and just evidence of knotty wood that they were using. Still, we'll get that filled, and this is going to be painted black, so it's not an issue. Now I'm using naphtha just to get any residue off and also to take a look at the wood. It's always kind of fun to see what we're working with. But again, you can see that this is just a combination of kind of whatever wood was left over at the time. To attempt to give this thing some personality, we're going to use a black gel stain. And I was really surprised and pleased at how well it went. Look at that. Really, much prettier than I was expecting. That's really transformed this average wood into an attractive top. You can see that screw hole that we'll have to touch up later, but really, this is gorgeous. Oh, look who it is. This is Katniss. He lives a few doors down and comes to visit once in a while. We're not supposed to feed him, but we give him a little bit of tuna water when he stops by, and he loves that. He's such a funny, friendly cat, and he's 18 years old. See you later, Katniss. Okay, back to work. Now that that stain has dried, I'm going to add a water-based polyurethane. That's a durable finish that we like to start with. I'm again using some naphtha on the base here, just to clean off some of the grime. Look at all that coming off. And we're going to use some furniture markers just to touch up some of the nicks down here. It's really kind of a rough and random pattern, so this doesn't take a ton of work. Now we're going to protect that with clear satin lacquer, just so none of it peels up when we use tape later. Now onto the feet. I'm going to paint them black and then add a couple of gold stripes. Using all lacquer-based products. Look at how smooth that's looking already. but we're going to protect that with some satin clear. Now adding the gold stripes. Just going to add a bit of personality to the bottom of this piece. Look at that glistening. I'm going to protect that with some clear gloss. Unmasking here. Look at how nice that's looking. Okay, now this is toward the top of the dresser, and we're going to hit this section with gold. I'm then going to seal that with gloss. And we've demonstrated this before, but once that gloss is dry, I'm going to come in with a light coat of black. The overspray doesn't matter on the trim there because lacquer products are compatible. See, I'm going to hit all of the frame with solid black now. Coming back up to the trim at the top, and I've got French lacquer on a rag, and I'm going to remove the black, being very careful not to cut into the gold. This is sort of an antiquing effect. Just about like that. I'm going to protect that now with clear gloss. Now that that trim is done, I have that protected, and I'm coming back with satin clear to protect the black frame. Some unmasking here without damaging the lacquer veneer trim. That's good. And this dresser is already looking so much fresher. Okay, now I have a brushing lacquer going over top of the water-based polyurethane once that is fully dry. This is semi-gloss. Look at that. That'll quiet down once it dries, but that grain is just looking beautiful now. Okay, now we're addressing the drawers. We have a glass cleaner and 4O, that's 4 zeros, steel wool. And we're going to be very, very careful not to rub through this lacquer veneer, but do our best to just remove the grime that's built up over more than 100 years. Such an attractive pattern. Look at that, yeah. Now we have an antique walnut gel stain that we're using to kind of liven up that tiger pattern. It'll deal with some of the minor scratches as well. Once that's complete, we're going to seal that with satin lacquer. And on the outside of the drawer, not as important, but we're going over that with what's called tung oil. And that really just revives the natural wood. Look at that. Another day, and it's raining here. We need to get some spraying done, so we need to be really careful to avoid blushing. I'm just going to be doing thin coats here, even if it takes a little bit longer. I'm going to seal that black with satin lacquer. And that's just going to be a nice frame for the wood top. Next, we're going to be prepping some wood for a pattern design that's going to go on the sides of this dresser. The idea we have is to design a skyscraper shape, reminiscent of all of the Art Deco buildings of the 1920s and 30s. So this is going to be the base of the building. We're looking at it upside down. They're going to get painted black. It'll take several coats. Now I'm using wood glue for the center structures of the building. This is just simple 1/4-inch trim. Got that clamped. It'll glue overnight. Now I've roughly laid out the rest of the design of both buildings. Now I've cut the pieces out for the first one. And now the glue is drying. Meanwhile, we're going back to the top where we have that screw hole to deal with, doing a little bit of touch-up, first with the furniture marker. Then we're going to use French lacquer to thin out the powders and make a thin wash to kind of replicate that yellowish color you can see in the wood and the stain. It's going to help that blend in and disappear. And that's looking pretty good. Now we'll seal that with clear satin lacquer. Prior to that, we had buffed out the brushing lacquer gently with some steel wool. Gonna hit the sides as well before we put the applique on. Now that the buildings are dry, I'm going to cut them out. For the long cuts, I'm going to use the bandsaw. And for the shallow cuts, I'm going to use a razor knife. Score it a couple times, and this 1/8 inch plywood will snap off. Starting to look like a skyscraper. We are going to paint these buildings gold. After that dries, we sealed it with lacquer and then actually went back in with black to get those grooves to kind of pop a little bit more. And then we dusted gold over top of that to bring it back on the surface. Touching up the sides here. Okay, we're going to get that positioned and mark the position with tape. Move the building aside and sand underneath so that the glue will attach. You can see there's still a little bit more touch-up to do on the sides. Now we've got a combination of 2-part epoxy, and we're also going to double up with wood glue. We like to use both just to make sure that it's stuck on there. We pre-drilled and we are adding solid brass escutcheon pins. Just kind of a little extra bit of class there and security to make sure that these buildings never come off. Using the nail gun to very carefully put a couple through the base. We then covered that with black wax and buffed it out. One more escutcheon pin. Now all we have left is to touch up the inside of the frame. And we are ready to put the drawers back in and call this piece done. Hopefully we've respected the original design while adding a few enhancements. Art Deco was so breakthrough and exciting in the 20s and 30s, and we like to imagine what it would be like to add to and expand on those innovations. This dresser is available for purchase. The last piece we featured in a video sold in just a few days, so be sure to check this one out if it's of interest. If you haven't already, please subscribe. It really helps our channel and enables us to make more of these Art Deco pieces. If you liked this video, we've got a couple more you can watch. You're welcome back here at Montford Boulevard anytime.